Terry, thank you so much for sharing your wise advice and wisdom about how we can keep focused and keep our eye on the prize. Because a lot of times we think that success happens overnight. We see so many stories of success, but we don't often see what it takes to work up to that success, the time, the effort, the energy. So, what strategies do you have to stay focused and motivated as you're taking that journey toward working toward your prize?
Laura, first let me thank you very much for having me here today. I want to just tell a brief story of how I was successful.
Great.
And maybe that will help students to see
Absolutely.
that there is a path.
Yeah.
When I was in 11th grade, my history teacher actually put me on the road to success. And hopefully a road leads to the path. And so the road isn't the path, the road takes you to the path of success. So he talked to me about being a banker.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got more specific as time went on and told me to go into commercial banking. But he laid out on the road what I needed to do once I reached the path. So when I came home from college in the summers, I became a teller. 1977 was a teller for actually Princeton Bank at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to be a teller each summer. And then when I graduated from college, I went into a management training program, 1980. The success happened slowly over time. And so I became an officer of the bank, a vice president of the bank, and eventually a senior vice president of the bank. And then in 2006, became the director of banking for the state of New Jersey, which is the highest ranking banking official in the state. And so that overnight success took 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
But there were steps that I took each day, each year to reach that goal. And I focused each day, each year for 21 years to obtain that goal.
And you learned a lot along the way, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And to think that you could have just jumped into that major leadership role automatically would have been very overwhelming. So that journey and those steps along the way really did help you to learn and to bring that focus and that energy to life to get you to where you were at.
That's correct. Because as I focused on the journey, I learned managerial skill sets.
Right.
I learned leadership skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And they're completely different. People look at them as the same, but they are different skill sets.
Absolutely.
I also learned how to be more fair to individuals who work for me and to understand the needs and concerns of the employees of the institutions that I work for. And so through that process, there was a gradual learning process about the banking industry entirely because I worked as a commercial lender. I spent years working as a government relations manager, as a community development officer, and overseeing the retail side, HR, and finance of a bank. So I spent that time learning all about banking so that in 2006, when I became the director of banking, I actually knew how a bank worked start to finish, from the teller line all the way through to being a senior vice president of a bank. I learned it all and spent time to make sure I absorbed what I learned. So I had to focus on absorbing all the information so that it would stay with me.
As leaders, we often hear that we have to think strategically, and that's an important component of leadership. What does strategic thinking mean to you? How do you define it? And what are some strategies that you can advise us to consider as we wish to improve upon our strategic thinking?
Thank you, Laura. Great question. In fact, I read a book by Richard Horroth about Deep Dive.
Okay.
And it talks about strategic thinkers, and there are 4 types of strategic thinkers. But the one I want to focus on is the strategic thinker that generates effective insights, thinks inside the box by utilizing available tools combined with the right information to formulate the ideal solutions. And so what that means to me is that thinking inside the box, we're always told to think outside the box.
Right.
But most of what we actually do is inside the box. So we need to focus on all of the tools and resources inside the box and see how they help us obtain the goals that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Also, by thinking through the ideas and the ideals that we really want to accomplish, we can actually better reach our goals and actually be better people as we reach our goals. And the key in life is, and I hate to put it this way, it's not the amount of money we make, it's the amount of friends we meet along the way.
The network.
The network. And so if we stay focused on making sure that we treat people fairly, that with respect, as well as focusing on our goals and objectives. People will help us to reach our goals and objectives along the way. It's not just by yourself that you reach your goals and objectives. Sometimes there is a helping hand that kind of pulls you up one rung of the ladder. And don't be afraid to accept that help.
Yeah.
You know, we're not in this world alone. And so we need to make sure that we're focused not only on our goals and objectives, but the people around us who are trying to help.
Yeah. It's just interesting to me that the concept, even of strategic thinking, goes back to the importance of relating with others, working with others, relying upon others, and those interpersonal skills that we need to build those relationships. Because as we tend to learn as leaders, leadership's not in a vacuum. It is with other people, and other people bring strengths and talents and skills, even to strategic thinking.
Absolutely. And I did a small speech on networking a few weeks ago at Ryder. And one of the things I'd like to make sure that students know, as they stay focused on their goals and objectives, if networking becomes part of it, in my life, networking helped me to actually be in the presence of John F. Kennedy, helped me to actually have dinner with Coretta Scott King. It helped me to actually give out Thanksgiving dinners with Martin Luther King III. And so networking is a vital part of the strategic thinking and reaching goals and objectives, as well as being a strategic leader. So networking helps with all of those functions.
Great. Thank you so much for giving us such a robust amount of information to consider when it comes to how we can maintain focus, how we can work toward the prize, and also being realistic and humble in the fact that it takes a while for that journey to occur, and that we need to stick with it. So
absolutely.
Thank you for providing that insight. We really appreciate
Laura,
it.
thank you for having me here today. Greatly appreciate it.